Now, Genryu's sumo stance might not have the depth of something like, say, Miguel Savage stance, which I'm showing you on the screen right now, but honestly, at its core, it is a complete stance, so you do not have to worry. It has plenty of 50-50 mid-low mix-up options. It has a natural launcher with some pretty decent range, a pretty fast counter hit launcher, which in turn is also its homing move, so a fast homing move, a very unique looking punch parry, which is kind of funny to me, but does the job, and a power crush grab that is a three-way mix-up, one of them being a throw launcher. And of course, the stance does have some major weaknesses. For one, it's a stationary stance, which means you can't move while you're in the stance. Some of the key moves don't have the best range. Opponents with good movement will just backdash away and then launch punish you for it. And some of the moves that do have good range are launch, punish, blow, and block, as well as their duckable high enders, or just our duckable highs in general, meaning your opponent can still launch you pretty easily if they read the high. And probably the biggest weakness is that you can't block when you're in the stance. If you press 3+4, he enters into a sumo stance, and this is a stationary stance. Unfortunately, that is a clear weakness. I'm showing you here with Zafina from her Scarecrow stance. She doesn't have the best movement in this stance, but in certain situations, she can still get a whiff punish just because she has any form of movement. Genryu doesn't have that option, and he cannot block in this stance. So those are two clear weaknesses you need to know how to work around. That being said, when he does enter his sumo stance, he is tech crouch, and that's very good because he is in cross status, meaning all highs will go over his head. And in certain situations, you can get a whiff punish like I'm showing you right here. So that is a really good thing. Now, also when he's in his sumo stance, if you press down forward 1+2, I'm showing you, he has a little low parry from that stance. It's not the same as the generic low parry, but it is still a low parry nonetheless. Alright, let's talk about some things I actually don't see a lot of Genryu players do. Now, when he's in a sumo stance, if you press down, he enters into this split animation that I'm showing you right here. And that's good because it gives him more evasion. There are certain mid attacks that will whiff when he enters this animation that would not have whiffed in your regular sumo stance. Now, if you press down and hold forward, he goes into this like, I want to give you a big hug, like I love you type sumo thing or whatever. I don't know. During that animation, if you try to attack with a punch, high or mid, it is a punch parry and he will parry the punch and get your back. Now, if you press down and hold forward and your opponent does a kick, during that animation, he will also auto block, and that's very, very good. But that's during that animation. If your opponent throws out an attack and it's before the animation activates, you will get hit. And you have another option is when you're holding forward, if you press 1+2, he goes into his power crush grab throw, which we'll talk about later in the video. Now, when you go into your split animation, if you hold up or when you press down for the splits and you just continuously hold down, you do get a little sidewalk, which adds a little bit more to the evasion. And I'm showing you in cases right here, you can actually get a whiff punish. I'm basically doing the sidewalk, getting up from splits and doing down forward 2 and whiff punishing Miguel. Now, when you press 3+4 to enter your sumo stance, if you press 3+4 again, you enter your sit stance, which is another stance he has I'll talk about in another video. 2-1 is a high string, which is probably my favorite way to enter to sumo stance. It comes out in 12 frames. It is +1 on block and +12 on hit and on counter hit. Yes, +1 on block. So if you enter on block, you still have advantage frames. That's very good. And I'm showing you right here that it also jails on block, meaning your opponent cannot duck the second hit, which might be more important than just being +1 on block, honestly. On hit is a natural combo. As I said earlier, it is +12 on hit, so very, very good frames on hit. It is high, so your opponent can duck and launch you. And if your opponent is sidewalking to the right, be very careful that this string is susceptible to sidewalk right. Back 2-1 is a mid string that comes out in 15 frames, -2 on block and +4 on hit and on counter hit. Now, this, at least in my experience, is the most popular way I see most people going to sumo stance for Genryu, and -2 on block is enough, but it can normally enforce a 50-50. On hit, it is a natural combo. Something that's pretty interesting is that if you land the second hit on counter hit, the frames become +6 versus +4. And something that's very, very good about this string, and I'm showing you right here, I've frozen it, is that when he enters the animation of back 2-1, he is tech crouch, meaning he goes under hides. There's a really nice little built-in defense right there. Now, certain characters will be able to parry or reverse their second attack, and it's also weak or susceptible, whatever you want to say, to sidewalk right, like I said with 2-1, but in my experience, that's not easy to do. 1+2 is a mid attack that comes out in 19 frames, -3 on block, +17 forces crouch on hit, and counter hit launcher. So -3 on block, pretty nice. You can still enforce a mix up there. On hit though, +17 enforces crouch. So the sky is the limit to do whatever you want on hit. This is massive frames on hit. Okay, now counter hit, as I said, it is a counter hit launcher, but the really cool thing is that you can actually pick up the combo path whether you choose to go into stance, or if you choose not to go into stance, you can still do a combo. So that's really, really nice. And this move also hits grounded, so you can kind of get some Oki pressure right there. Now, this attack is linear on top of linear on top of linear. So if your opponent has good movement, don't throw this out. Up forward 2 is a mid attack that comes out in 21 frames, so definitely on the slower side there. Is -7 on block and +6 on hit and counter hit. -7 on block technically is safe, but don't forget that you cannot block when you're in this stance. +6, that's decent frames on hit, but if I'm being honest, I pretty much only use this move when my opponent has really good movement, or if they're just moving a lot in general, because if you haven't noticed, this is a homing move. And the other reason I would use this move is because of the follow-up attack, which is something I will talk about in the tip section at the end of this video. Up forward 1+2 into sumo stance is something you'll normally do in your combo path, but you can do it out in the open from time to time. The frames range from decent to actually very good. It comes out in 18 frames. It's a mid attack. Now this is one of those moves that has really long activation frames, so if you do it close, it's -2 on block, +6 on hit, but if you do it far, it's +3 on block and +11 on hit. So very, very nice right there. Now this move tech jumps, meaning it goes over low attacks, which is a really nice built-in defense there. It's very linear though, which makes a lot of sense because the frames are pretty good, so you can pretty easily step this to the left as well as very easily step this to the right as well. Coming out of crouch status, you can enter sumo stance while standing 1-2, which is a mid-mid string that is a natural combo. It comes out in 13 frames, -14 on block and +6S on hit and on counter hit. Now, -14 on block, you need to be very careful. Try to use this strictly as a block punisher because there are certain characters in the game that can launch punish you for this. And -14 is just very punishable on block anyway. Also, remember that you can't block in sumo stance, so there's a high probability you might just get launched, even if it's not considered a punish because you can't block. Now, +6S on hit, forces crouch on hit, very nice frames on hit, chucking damage too, pretty decent damage. If you're playing an opponent that has good movement and they're moving a lot to the right, you need to be careful because this is susceptible to sidestep right as well as sidewalk right. Down back 2 is a low attack that comes out in 29 frames. It is -22 on block, so very punishable on block. I'm showing you right here, and it's a natural launcher on hit. So that's kind of cool, but if you press 3+4 during an animation, you will cancel into sumo stance. And that's more for like mind games and things like that. The problem is you can't block in sumo stance, and down back 2 is somewhat reactable. So when you do this cancel, a lot of people are doing something that may react to a low, which could potentially be something like a low crush, like a hop kick. And if that's the case, you don't cancel into block, so you basically end up getting launched, which I guess it is what it is at the end of the day because you would have got launched anyway. So, you know, you just need to be careful with the down back too. But it is there for mind games if you want to cancel to the sumo stance, is my point. Attack 1 is an 11 frame attack coming out of your sumo stance. It is a high attack, -3 on block, so solid frames on block, +8 on hit and on counter hit, so pretty solid frames there as well. This is your fastest attack coming out of your sumo stance. It is a duckable high, so you have to be careful there. And also it is weak to sidestep right, so if you have an opponent moving in that direction, again, be careful. Coming off your 2-1, you are +1 on block, so this effectively will come out 10 frames, so in most cases it should beat out any move I-11 or slower and trade with a 10 frame attack. So if your opponent has a good 10 frame counter hit, keep that in mind, be very careful. It's also a move that you will commonly see Genryu players use in their combo pass. Attack 2 is a high attack that comes out in 14 frames, so decently fast. It is -9 on block, so safe on block, but you definitely lose your turn. On hit, it is a knockdown. On counter hit though, this is a counter hit launcher. Very good there. It is also your homing move. This is what you use when people are sidewalking you or sidestepping you a lot. So if you catch them doing a move there, boom, another counter hit. Like I said, it is a high, so it is duckable. Something else I want to say about this move is that this move has really good ranges. The range is like crazy good, so keep that in mind. Attack 3 is a low attack coming out of your sumo stance at 20 frames. This is probably one of my favorite attacks for Genryu coming out of the sumo stance just from the animation alone. I just think the animation looks awesome. It is -12 on block and +9 on hit and on counter hit. So the frames all in all are actually pretty solid. Nobody's going to launch you at -12 for the most part, maybe one of those weird 2D characters, but there are characters that have good I-11 or I-12 while standing punishers, like Dragunov by the wall, so you need to be aware of who you're playing against. It is a low, so of course you can be low parried, you can also be low crush. Again, be careful when you don't overuse this move. It is pretty linear in the sense that it's very weak to sidewalk left as well as sidewalk right, and if you're playing an opponent with good movement, the range is not the best. A good player will backdash and then whiff punish you for this out in the open. TAC 4-1 is a mid-high 13 frame string that is -9 on block, so safe on block, but again, you lose your turn, and +10 on hit, ballerina spin, so very, very good frames on hit. This string technically is hit confirmable. That's not easy to do in my humble opinion, so just practice and you eventually get it. I just showed you that it's also wall splats. This string does not gel on block, so a knowledgeable opponent will duck the high and will launch you. Also, if you just do TAC 4, the mid by itself, the frames honestly aren't that good. It's -14 on block and -3 on hit and counter hit. And if you're playing an opponent with good movement, they can step the first attack and launch you. TAC 4-2 is a mid attack that comes out in 18 frames. I'm pretty sure this is his new attack from season 4. On block, this is -15, so this is launch punishable on block. So if you throw this out, try to make sure it's going to land. On hit though, this is a launcher, and that's really nice. And the range is very, very solid, kind of like TAC 2, but I think the range is a little better than that. This is weak to sidestep right as well as sidewalk right and sidewalk left, so doesn't have the best tracking. It is an elbow, so like a nice little built-in defense, because most characters in the game will not be able to reverse or parry this. But then, you know, Jin, Geese, Leroy, you do have some characters that will be able to reverse or parry this. TAC 4 at 1+2 is a mid attack that comes out in 20 frames, and I like to mix this up with the back 1+2 low because it's -24 on block and it knocks down on hit and counter hit. But despite being -24 on block, you can't launch it. Your opponent basically has to hit you with a grounded attack. So it's basically like, you know, low risk type of attack. Outside of that, it's extremely linear. That's something you have to be aware of because he's lunging his whole body forward at you. So your opponent could pretty much sidestep you or sidewalk you in either direction with ease. TAC back 1+2 is a low attack that comes out in 22 frames. Just like forward 1+2, it is -24 on block, but again, you won't be launched for it. Your opponent can basically punish you only with the attack that hits grounded. On hit and on counter hit is knockdown. It has some pretty nice range. There's plenty of times I catch people with this when they think they're out of range, but I still land it. You can't low parry this attack, which is really, really nice. And it is weak to sidewalk right as well as sidewalk left. You can sidestep it as well, but the timing is a little tricky. So I actually did forget to say this. You can kind of tell from the animation, but you know, this is a guide, so I do want to say it. Forward 1+2, which is the mid attack, that actually low crushes, and back 1+2, which is the low attack, that actually high crushes. TAC 1+2 is a mid attack that comes out in 23 frames, and this is your power crush. And it's a little slower than I would like, but it does serve its purpose. It's -12 on block, so if your opponent blocks this, you can be punished. You won't be launch punished or anything like that. This power crush is a 3-way throw. So if you press the 1 button, you will throw your opponent behind you. If you press the 2 button, you will flip your opponent over on top of, not on top, but like right in front of you. Now, I haven't found anything that's like a guaranteed follow-up for this. I wish I did, but I haven't. So if you guys know of any guaranteed follow-ups from the power crush from the 2 option, please let me know in the comments below. And if you press 1+2, you throw your opponent up in air for a very big launcher, which is what everybody tries to break and avoid. Now, outside of that, this is actually very linear. You can easily step this to the left or to the right. TAC down back 1+2 is a mid attack that comes out in 50 frames. This is your unblockable attack from your sumo stance, and it has some pretty nasty range. Look how far away this can hit you from. Also, if you land this and you're a decent ways away from the wall, you can still wall splat your opponent, which is kind of crazy to me. This isn't unblockable though, guys. If your opponent reads you're going to do this, it's pretty easy to interrupt. Like I said, it's a 50 frame startup. Also, this is very linear. You can easily step this to the left as well as easily step this to the right. Two 1, 1+2, up 4-2, back 2-1. These are strings you can use to enter into your sumo stance, but these strings also have follow-up attacks. And if you are mixing up these attacks properly with going to sumo stance and doing the follow-up attacks, you may be able to condition your opponent not to attack you. And some of these follow attacks are really dangerous. I'm showing you right there. 1+2, 2-1-2. Those follow-up attacks are natural launchers, and you can delay the 2 of the 2-1-2. And up forward too, that follow-up attack is a counter hit launcher. So that's enough to make people second guess. As long as you're not abusing things in one way or the other, you're mixing it up properly, then you may be able to enter sumo stance in certain cases on block and not have to worry about your opponent attacking you. People sometimes want to know, why do my power crush work in certain situations and why doesn't it work in other situations? Now that's a really detailed answer, especially because I don't know your situation, but I will say this, that if they do a low or if they throw you doing a power crush, then it'll beat out your power crush. And I actually will show you right now some moves that I think are pretty good moves to get your power crush off on. So I just showed you 2-1 on block. Remember, that's plus on block. And right there I showed you that it beats out a 15 frame move and it beats out a 10 frame move, which is a fast move. So 2-1 into your power crush against people that are mashing a lot, pretty good option. Back 2-1, same thing. It has pretty good frames on block, beats out a 15 frame move, beats out a 10 frame move. I'm about to show you right here. So that's also a pretty decent option. 1+2, I like to do this, but I am cautious because in this example, I'm showing you that the 1+2 beats out a 15 frame launcher. Again, this is up against mashers, but against a masher, I lose in this case against a 10 frame move. Okay, so if you don't really understand the depth of how that works, I made a video, a Tekken hidden frame mechanics video, and I go over in clear details with very good examples showing you like why power crushes work in certain situations and why they don't. Same thing with tech jump and tech crouch moves and things like that. But for this case, for Genryu tips, I would suggest doing 2-1 or back 2-1 if you actually have a case where you have mashers and you want to use the power crush to beat them out. One way I like to use Genryu is unblockable. And FYI, this won't work against a knowledgeable opponent. And against a good player, you'll probably get this 1, maybe 2 times per set, but then they'll adjust. Is to basically whiff punish my opponent's get up kicks. I can't tell you how many times I play people that just love to do get up kicks to stop me from pressuring them. And if I actually read that, Genryu unblockable is a pretty decent choice to try to whiff punish their get up kick. And if you're by the wall, this could be very gratifying. I've said this before. Genryu unblockable will knock you so far away it can wall splat from a good range away, and you basically get to run in and get some follow-up damage after that. The last tip I have for you guys is honestly just me reiterating something I've said multiple times in this video. 2-1 is +1 on block, so that means your fastest attack coming out of your sumo stance is now 10 frames relative to your opponent, so it will beat out a move I-11 or slower, and it'll trade with other 10 frame moves. That also means though that your 4-1, which is a 13 frame string, will now come out effectively in 12 frames. It's a 12 frame string there coming off 2-1 on block, as well as your sumo 2 or tac 2, which is the homing move that's 14 frame high, that will come out in 13 frames. So these are things I just want you to be aware of. Tekken 7 Genryu Beginner's Guide Part 2 is done. I am so happy to be done with this video. I started this video like 3 times and started over. Guys, I know it has been over years since I made part 1, and I'm really sorry about that. Please forgive me. I'm doing the best I can. I'm still new to content creation. I've been doing it a year, but I'll say this, when I made the first Genryu Beginner's Guide, that part 1 took me 5 weeks to make. And now that technically translates to me like I'm a full-time software engineer now, and it takes up a lot of my time. It is much easier making my green rank walkthroughs and discussion videos. Even my overview and breakdowns don't take as much time as my beginner guides, because I like to put in more depth into my beginner guides. And I'm still going to make them. It's just, you know, work with me there. I would love to do this full time. I really would, and like program on the side, like do side apps, but I'm not making any money right now. And when I do get monetized, hopefully soon, I still probably won't be making enough money to sustain myself. So guys, please continue to support me, like my videos, share my videos with people, subscribe to me, tell people about me. That will help get my name out there. My content, I do think, is quality content, so I do think I'll grow as more people actually hear about me. But yeah, if you guys like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. All support, as I just said earlier, is very much appreciated. If you guys like Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Dead by Daylight, please consider checking me out on Instagram. I'm trying to grow over there as well. This is Astilite. You guys take care.